10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, and welcome to the 12th Dimension. Today I'm joined by Chris Evers, OLM editor. Welcome, Chris.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well. Just had my lunch, so I'm stuffed and full and ready to go.
Yep, same here. Right, a little bit too full, I think. Right, so this is, and just to let people know, this is going to be audio only. It's going to go on podcast. I've not decided if I'm going to put it out on YouTube yet, but we'll see how it goes on the podcast anyway. So I first met you, well, the only time I've met you was last year when you set up the OLM conference up in Hull, which was a great turnout, by the way, and it was really good and absolutely enjoyed it. Met some great people, including yourself. There's you, Paul Sinclair, Peter Robbins, Malcolm Robinson, to name but a few, the Kinsellas. I'm just trying to think who else was that. There's that many I can't remember, but
Yeah,
they're the
quite
ones
a
I
few
can
there,
remember.
Andy, weren't there, really?
Yeah. So they're the ones off the top of my head anyway.
Yeah, I mean, last year's event was the 4th Outer Limits Magazine OLM conference, and that one was, of course, well, that was pushed back because of the pandemic and lockdown.
Yes.
You know, it was actually 2 years in the waiting process. The previous one I held at Pontefract when Calvin Parker was due to come and talk to us, but because of various medical problems that he suddenly found he had, he couldn't travel, and obviously that was quickly rearranged, and we had to get other speakers in and so on and so forth. And I'm just in I am now selling tickets for the 5th event, which is the conference that I'm holding in Hull at the Hull University, a 410-seater auditorium, fully air-conditioned, and that will be taking place in Hull this year on the 30th of September.
Cool. Excellent. Hopefully I'll be able to make it. Fingers crossed.
What do you mean, hopefully? If you don't come, mate, I'll be finishing the podcast.
I'll be there. I'll definitely be there. I've just got to get my car fixed. I'm going to the other one in Manchester as well, so it needs to be started well before then.
As well, yeah.
But the conferences, there's one before and one after. Yours is just after my MOT's due.
Yeah.
So my MOT's on the 31st of August.
Honestly, mate, you can always wait for the car and get a train.
I was thinking that, might just do that. It'd be cheaper. Work out cheaper anyway.
It would be, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So on to OLM. How do you want to tell us how you got started doing the magazine?
Well,
Oh,
it's
sorry. Just before you carry on,
yeah,
for those that don't know, OLM is Outer Limits Magazine.
that's correct. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I thought the title was too long, so I shortened it basically
Yeah.
just to OLM now.
Just
And
abbreviated it.
just abbreviate it, yeah. And if you're speaking about OLM, excuse me, people know exactly what you're talking about. And you know, Outer Limits magazine, it just sounds like it comes from a TV show, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get what you mean. So how did it all kick off? What made you
Well,
start?
it's quite a long, complicated story, really. I mean, it goes back to when I first got interested in the subject, which was actually 1974. Excuse me,
Right.
when I was 14 years old, and we'd just moved up to a new council estate in the Hull area, which is known as Bransholme. And early one February evening, group of lads, we'd just come home from school, we had our evening meal. Mum
Yeah.
always let us out after we'd done our own work for a couple of hours, even in February, which is when this occurred. And this is when I saw my first strange light in the sky. Completely clear night. I was looking from an area of a new part of the estate, which later became a shopping centre and a
Right.
small close of houses and so on. And I'm looking from, this is based in the northeast of Hull, and I'm looking across Hull to the southwest, approximately where the Humber Bridge is now. If you've been to
Oh,
Hull,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
you'll know the kind of area that I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
talking of. I saw a flickering light go on in the sky. Didn't think anything of it. Kind of like flickered once, low down on
Yeah.
the horizon. Oh yeah, flickering light, blah blah blah. Nothing to worry about. And then a couple of seconds later, it flickered again, a little bit nearer to me, slightly higher, and then did it again for a second or so and went off. Didn't think anything of it. It's a bit strange.
Yeah.
I've seen that, but anyway, it then seemed to jump. The same light seemed to jump into a middle position of the previous two flashes. So it was like position, excuse me, position one, position two, position middle of position one and two, and then
Yeah.
it like leapfrogged over the sky, going from the Hesel Humber Bridge area, heading towards me in my direction. Anyway, completely cloudless sky. I'm looking up, watching this thing flickering across the sky, and it got above me. And so
Yeah.
oh, right, okay. So I shouted to my mates, guys, look up in the sky, there's a UFO. And that
Yeah.
basically, I only knew the term UFO being 14 at the time. We had like TV programs such as, UFO by Jerry Anderson, and that term was
Yeah.
used there. So I basically, that's why I use the term UFO. But the intriguing thing was, remember, this is a completely cloudless sky, a
Yeah.
plastic star vista, no street lights because it was kind of a brand new housing estate.
Yeah.
This thing above me in the sky flickered out and was not seen again. But how did it know that I'd shouted UFO? Because it was like it heard what I was saying. And
Like it had homed in on you.
yeah, like it had homed in on me for some reason. I mean, I'm not saying it did, but
Yeah.
it's like it did because I carried on watching in the same like direction it should go, logically thinking, if
Yeah.
it followed the same pattern of flashes previously. But there was absolutely nothing, just completely blinked out above my head, and
Oh.
it just went. So that was the first thing that got me interested in the subject, and
Yeah.
obviously started reading the available publications. We didn't have
Yeah.
any internet. We didn't have no computers or anything like that. The only computers we had were the ones stuck inside our skulls.
Yeah.
So basically I started reading whatever I could from wherever, books by Major Donald Kehoe, about flying saucers in America, and is the way that he described them, and the which I found fascinating. I then moved on to things like about the Warminster thing. So I just read whatever
Yeah.
I from wherever I could, and just that's how I became interested in the subject. After that, I followed the subject, looking for newspaper reports, various bits and bobs of information that would happen locally, maybe a sighting or something like that. We had an event that was said to have happened in Hull on a private housing estate, which was
Yeah.
being a down craft, but it's quite probably that isn't so. We believe now it was probably the Northeastern Gas Company doing a bit of work in the area at the time, and people mistook the lights that they'd seen for a UFO basically. But anyway,
Right. Okay.
all those kind of information came into me. I took it in, tried to keep it in the old noggin, and keep thinking about
Yeah.
what was happening and so on and so forth. And then come to the 1990s, I still had a massive interest in the subject, and I set up the whole UFO Society, which ran for a number of years. I was the chairman for 3 years or so, and then I moved
Yeah.
on for personal reasons. But a part of me being in the Hull UFO Society and setting it up was to get again more information out to the public, to make people aware of the things that were going on, not just in Hull and East Yorkshire, but globally as well. Throughout the kingdom
Yeah.
of United Kingdom. And as part of that, I decided to put a publication together, which was printed in my Windows 95 system. So that dates that for you. And that was called Faster Than Light magazine. And I shared information and copies of the magazine with people around the world. It used to go as far as Japan, printed and
Wow.
posted, of course. It used to go to like Japan, France, Germany, America. Even one or two went to Australia, and I'd share information with people like Malcolm Robinson, and of course, this is back in the days when we had the much missed and fantastic publication from Graham Birdsall, Russ Callahan, and Mark Birdsall of
Yeah.
UFO magazine. And
Yeah.
Tony Dodd, of course, worked alongside Graham Birdsall for a number of years, and I became an investigator for Quest International, which was Tony Dodd's organisation. And
Right.
unfortunately, that didn't last too long because, uh, as we all now know, Tony passed away a number of years ago now.
Yeah.
And but while I was running the Hull UFO Society, I'd have people like Graham Birdsall and Russ Callahan come over to Hull, and that's actually the first time that I put a conference on. And that was at the Hull Middleton Hall, Hull University Hall, Middleton Hall, and that
Yeah.
was back in the late 90s. We had 300 people there on a wet Monday night in February. So
Wow.
that went
Oh, a lot though.
fantastic. It was, yeah, but we've got to remember, Andy, this is at the days of the X-Files and, Mulder and Scully and all
Yeah.
that, when it was just before everybody was expecting computers to go down with the Y2K or whatever you call it, virus and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of conspiracy stuff around, but the interest was fantastic back then, as you probably know yourself. But
Yeah.
as part of that, I ended up working quite often with those guys. Got to know Russ and Tony Dodd quite well, and other people associated with the magazine, and Graham. And then, of course, Graham passed away in the early 2000s. And after that happened, I kind of like moved away for a number of years. Not moved away from the area, but moved away from the subject.
Yeah.
And what I did, I kept seeing the occasional bit of information in a newspaper here and there, and but I'd actually got rid of all my UFO related publications and everything. Big mistake. Don't ever do it, folks, because this subject will drag you back into it. Once it's got a
Yeah.
hold on you, you're going to have to replace all them if you sell them. Thankfully, I have a friend who sent me all the old UFO magazines on a USB stick now, so I've got them all back. And
Oh, that's good.
it's fantastic just to go back through all that old information. And
Yeah.
excuse me. After that, this was back the early 2000s. I walked away, got interested again in the early part of the 2010s, around about 2012,
Yeah.
2013,
Yeah.
started reading bits and bobs of information again, and I then decided after a short while to set up Outer Limits magazine. which
Yeah.
I had a natter with Malcolm Robinson about, and he said, "Oh yeah, go for it, Chris. Yeah, give it a go." So I did, and Malcolm's been very supportive. He's the associate editor of the magazine, and he sends me. He doesn't sell me anything. That's the wrong way to say. The wrong thing to say. He sends me information about items that he's looking at, magazine reviews, book reviews, and all that goes into our
Yeah.
magazine as well. Anyway, as part of that, after originally deciding to do the magazine quarterly, there was that much interest in it globally on various sites around the internet that I decided, to do the magazine every 2 months, and it's been at that rate since about issue 5, I think. So
Yeah.
it's been every 2 months since issue 5. I've just put together issue 43, which has gone out. So the magazine itself has been running now for 7 years, and it's actually coming. We've just entered our 8th year, and as part of that, I thought, what's the best way to get information out to people who may not subscribe to the magazine? So I decided to start holding conferences, and the first one, we had Philip Mantle and
Yeah.
a few other people, from the old Bufora days, come up to Hull and put a conference talk on for us. And it was great. It was just a one-day event.
Yeah.
No, it's one of the things I can say about the OLM conferences is that they're a friendly place to be.
Yeah.
Nobody's there with egos or anything like that. We're just trying to get information out to people. And that,
Yeah.
of course, culminated in last year's event, excuse me, with Malcolm Robinson, Peter Robbins. Philip was supposed to speak last year, Philip Mantle, but
Yeah.
unfortunately he has one or two health concerns as well, and he had to withdraw.
Yeah.
And we had the Kinsella twins, Ronald and Philip, who actually they received the OLM awards. I don't know if you remember the
Yeah. I
video.
was going to say they got the award, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and obviously Peter Robbins got an award as well for, recognising the truth with the Larry Warren
Yeah. Yeah.
situation, which is a political thing. But we're not going to go into that deeply, So yeah, and that is basically how OLM magazine came together, and how I decided to get re-involved in the situation.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you take other people's accounts and put them in the magazine.
Yes, yeah.
So
Yeah.
do people contact you direct, or do they do it through the magazine?
Some people contact me directly. Some do it through the email,
Yeah.
which is the Outer Limits Mag. That's all one word, the outer limits mag at
Yeah.
gmail.com. And if people have any interesting stories, any interesting sightings, yep, they can send me them, and I'll get back to them and we'll discuss the sighting, how they feel about it, and so on and so forth. And, if they can, I'll ask them to write it up so it's in their own words,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
always think it's better coming rather than you having to rewrite what somebody else has said. 'Cause I find you don't quite get the story 100% correct.
yeah, I completely agree with that. But I always do my best to check grammar and
Yeah.
spelling and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
I hated my English teacher, so I'm not the best to do it. So.
But I was, it was virtually pounded into me, like punctuation and that. So
Yeah,
whenever anyone sends me anything, I have to go through it, because if I'm putting up like with the thing that you sent me yesterday for the description of this, I've not done yours because I know it's going to be right, but some of them people will send it's
I
like
wouldn't trust that if I were you, Andy.
I'll double check after this. But some of them, you're gonna have to go through and just swap it about a little bit, just so it's
Yeah,
without being snobby, just so it's readable.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
Some people are dyslexic, and then of course
yeah,
I get American
it's
accounts coming
difficult,
in,
isn't
and
it?
we've got American spelling in there as well. So everything does need checking. It's a responsibility to do that,
Yeah.
and it's a fair responsibility as well.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Because if you're putting anything together and these spelling mistakes and these punctuation, I know it sounds stupid, but if there's punctuation and that in the wrong places, people think, well, if that's what the writing's like, I'm not going to bother watching or listening to it.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's how I see it. That's the first bit of what's going to be going on with either the podcast or the live stream or the interview, or even a conference. If someone's standing up as a speaker, if they've read something they wrote and it's not 100% correct, then
Yeah,
it could have a knock-on effect.
yeah.
So
Well, I
it's
don't know
worth
if, I
it
don't
just
know
for
if you
that.
actually noticed, Andy, but excuse me, at last year's event, I always put a disclaimer up. That
Right.
the reason for that is I don't want, if I don't know, let's say Mr. Smith comes on and he talks about cousin Zog. I've met
Yeah.
cousin Zog and I went to Zeta Reticuli with him and all this kind of information. I'm not saying, that individual isn't telling the truth. What I'm saying
Yeah.
is I can't prove it.
No.
So that's why I put a disclaimer up. So, please
Ah,
investigate everything yourself and make sure of all things, basically, that, that what they're telling you is the truth, and
yeah.
it's just personal protection.
Yeah. Because it's like any story and any encounter you hear of anyone, you if because most of the time, most of the encounters I've heard about, like well, most of the ones I've had as well, I've been on my own.
Yeah.
So I've only got me as the witness. There's
Yeah,
nobody else. So you can only take, if I was telling you, you can only take my word for it
absolutely.
that what I'm saying is true. And I could be
Absolutely.
talking out my backside or anything, and you wouldn't know.
Exactly.
So
But you see, when I was an investigator, I just didn't. If let's say you've just seen a sighting, and
yeah,
I interview you, you tell me this, that, and the other, and what I try to do as well, or any investigator should really do, is you should
yeah,
try to get as much background information on the individual as possible.
yeah,
Sounds crazy, but knock on the neighbours' doors. Oh, Mr. Smith, blah blah blah. How well do you know him? I've done it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it just gives more clarity to the situation. Oh, you don't want to believe him, he's a drunk or whatever, But
yeah,
9 times out of 10, people didn't mind me knocking on the door. I'd ask them for, what they know about, I'd explain who I was and what I was
yeah, yeah,
doing.
yeah.
I wouldn't just be like incognito working for the,
Yeah.
MI5 or something like that. I'm not a man in
Just
black,
turning up, dressed as a men in
But yeah,
black.
just try and get as much background information
Yeah,
as you can, even if it's silly things like speaking to other family members.
yeah. Oh,
It
yeah.
all helps.
It's
All helps.
yeah, definitely. No, totally agree with that. Makes sense. 'Cause it's only like what the police do if
Yeah,
when there's been an incident.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is very similar. Very similar.
yeah. But just going back to that sighting that you had in the 70s when you was with
Yeah,
your mates, what colour were the lights? Can you
it was a
remember?
silvery color, silvery whitish type color. It was
Oh,
only
right.
it was only like one pinprick of light, like a star.
Yeah,
But as I say, as it moved across the sky, it did grow very slightly in size as it moved across the sky to me. But I
yeah,
don't remember there being any types of satellites that were in orbit at that particular time. And I mean, we are speaking February 1974, and the
right.
sky wasn't as crowded as it is now. There's no Starlink or anything like that, but it was
Oh,
one
no.
pinprick of light that blinked on, blinked off, jumped back
Yeah.
into the middle, and then leapfrogged over itself as it came across the sky, and that was it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I meant to ask you before, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
That's okay.
Yep, that's fascinating. So, with out of all the accounts that you've ever taken, what is the one that stands out more than any other?
Oh, good heavens! Do you mean by UFO stories? I suppose
Yeah,
that's what you're talking
yeah.
about,
So,
right?
what for whatever reason to you, like personal
Right.
preference?
I've got two or three actually. There's an account of a lady by the name of Sandra Walton who lived in the Spraughtley area in East Yorkshire. And
Yeah,
Spraughtley is a small village, satellite village to the Hull area, and commute to work from there to Hull and maybe up to Bridlington and other places in the
yeah,
area.
yeah,
And claimed to have a sighting of a UFO appearing in the sky near the home that they lived in, which was a bungalow on the outskirts of Spraughtley. And
yeah,
she said she saw this orange light come along. It came towards their place of residence and then
yeah,
landed in an area close by. Um, and this creature got out and actually came to the the window of the kitchen where Erin and mother had run into. Now they said they were scared and they were terrified, but she
Yeah.
climbed back she climbed across the floor, crawled across the floor to the kitchen window where this thing was at the window, and took a photograph of it. Now, I spoke to many people about this, and I know that Bufora investigated it at the time, and the
Yeah.
Bufora um, the Bufora suggestion was that it was nothing more than a glove puppet, basically, But
Right.
it affected them. This thing affected them in so many different ways. The mum thought it was a visitation from angels, Jesus and all this
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But the daughter saw an alien at the window. But the thing that I mean, I've seen the photograph. It's not. I don't know if it's on this laptop, but
Yeah.
it is. It is an unusual thing, but how true it is or not, I don't know. And that's one of them that fascinated me. That goes back to, I think that was in one of the December 1995 issues of the local paper here, the Hull Daily Mail, and it was a front
Right.
page image at the time.
Yeah.
Now, when you go looking for that front page image and that edition, it's become an article inside the magazine. It's inside the newspaper. So that was
Right.
one. Another one was a claim by a young lad that he saw a UFO land on a school roof in Anlaby, which is another village up on the other side of Hull.
Yeah.
He basically said he was out there and he saw this craft come down, and somebody got out the craft on the school roof with what he called a tube going from his midriff of this
Yeah.
suit that he was wearing, silver type suit he was wearing, and it went back into the UFO. But when he shouted something to the occupant, the alleged occupant, this occupant, this person, this thing, this being, whatever you want to call it, climbed back into the UFO and it shot up into the sky.
Yeah.
And that's another one locally that I've always found intriguing. And then, of course, we've got the big cases like Pascagoula, which
Yeah.
I know my colleague Phil Mantle has done a lot of work on that with Dr. Irina Scott. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And what was really a dead sighting, the Pascagoula event had died a death basically, but since Phil got involved, it's now become one of the most publicized, one of the best known and best documented cases of its type in the world, in my opinion. And not a lot of people know that, Calvin Parker didn't just only have the one incident. He's said to have another incident in 1993. So
All
there's
right.
quite a lot involved in it. It's a
Yeah.
fascinating case. It really is.
Yeah. I say, do you want to talk about that?
Excuse me. Well, the Pascagoula case, we've got, from it being completely more or less forgotten about. Excuse me, Andy.
I know you're okay.
Okay. There's a lot more information available about it. With witnesses come forward who were working in the dockyard on the river, who sat up in a crane who witnessed something. We've got
Yeah.
from Mrs. Blair, who were across the river from the incident, from Charlie and Calvin when they were fishing on the banks of the Pascagoula River. We've got
Yeah.
those sat across the river. Mr. Blair was waiting for a boat to come and pick him up to take him to go to work because I believe he was a fisherman. And
Right.
they witnessed something in the water, what Mrs. Blair described as a grey man in the water.
Oh.
So there's all that to take into account. There was I believe he was a pastor in a local church who had two other people with him in a car while he was driving over the bridge
Yeah.
over the Pascagoula River, and they witnessed something blue, which was said to be the colour of the craft's lights,
Yeah. Yeah.
very close by, to the river. So they witnessed it all. So witnesses are just coming out left, right, and centre,
Yeah.
for what is, I think, one of the most fascinating cases going.
Yeah. Oh, cheers for that. Appreciate it. So another question for you. Sorry. So with the lights on these UFOs, what do you think they are? What do you think the reason is for them?
Oh, good heavens! I like that. that's a $6 million question, isn't it?
I know.
Really, you know.
Do you think
It
it's for
depends.
our benefit, or do you think it's some type of power source, like the power being emitted from the
It possibly
craft?
could, it could be a power source. Yeah, that would be a logical thought. You know, are they electric lights? Are they, is it just some kind of fluorescence on the
Yeah,
craft as they travelled here? Who knows? It could be absolutely any reason for that. I was once sat watching The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy many,
yeah,
many years ago on the old BBC TV series.
yeah,
And the character in that with two heads, Zav or Beeblebrox, said that, if I remember correctly, that he'd been flying around Earth in his spaceship just to entice and fascinate the humans, and
right.
perhaps they're doing something like that. Who
Yeah,
knows? Have they got a sense of humour? That's another question, I suppose.
oh, could be.
you know, but yeah, it could be anything. It could be from the power source. I don't know. Perhaps why do if they're hovering over something, and 9 out of 10 of these sightings, of course, are in the hours of darkness, then do they need lights to illuminate, or what are the if they've got eyes, what are their eyes like? Do they
Yeah,
see well in the dark, like a cat, for example? Who knows?
well, yeah, could be. Yeah, it could be like headlights, like what we
Yeah,
use on cars
yeah,
and that.
absolutely. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
Yeah, I just wonder because people have different. I've asked a few different people and they've given me different answers, but
yeah,
kind of on the same. Like it's either a power source or
yeah,
is it a frequency? I can't remember the word they used. Like like fr- like FM, like frequency modulator,
yeah.
like a sound wave, but a light wave.
I suppose when you talk about frequency modulation, um, it's to me, it's the question is really is how are they getting here? What is their means of transport? And you know, if the means of transport, because I'm a little bit old-fashioned, Andy, I tend
Yeah,
to believe a little bit more in the nuts and bolts
yeah,
theory.
yeah, yeah,
Of um, I'll call it a man-made craft for the sake
yeah,
of being
yeah.
accurate.
I was trying to
But by
think of
that,
something.
yeah, but by that, mate, I don't mean it's human made.
Yeah, it's
I
made.
mean,
It's physically made out of material.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, exactly. Um, it's are they using if it's basically you know set up so that somebody has to get in that craft and fly it, then obviously they're going to need some kind of lights. But if why do orbs light up? What
oh
what
yeah,
is in the orb that makes that light up? It's all
yeah,
part of the fascination of the subject.
yeah. So have you had any accounts of noises coming from the UFOs?
I
Because a
can't
lot
think
of
of any.
these,
I mean, I know there will be some, but I cannot think of any off the top of my
yeah,
head right now. Um, I mean, I think going back to the Pascagoula event, I don't know if that was silent. To be quite honest
yeah.
with you, I don't
Because I
know.
know a lot of the encounters that people give, it's silent or a slight
Yeah,
humming noise,
yeah,
but there's never any
yeah,
like. I suppose I'm thinking more like a music box, so some sort of melody
mm,
or pattern of noise being
yeah.
emitted from them.
That's a good question. It's not something I've actually thought about before, to be quite honest with you. But you would think if there is some kind of again man-made
Yeah,
device which has some kind of motor or engine system in it, then there must be some kind of noise coming from the engine system. I mean, we've all
yeah,
seen Star Trek, and we know what happens when it goes to warp drive, and the noise of the ship goes a little bit louder as it's traveling along.
yeah.
So
No, I
yeah,
just wondered. That was all. I've never asked that question before. It just
mm,
popped in my head then.
it's a good thought. Good thought.
Mm,
I'll look into
well,
that. I think
yeah. No, thank you.
that's okay.
Um, right. So, is anything else you want to cover? Is there
Um,
anything that's sticking out?
just really with the upcoming conference this year in Hull,
Yeah.
we might have one or two surprise guests there as well. maybe one associated with the Pascagoula event,
Ooh.
possibly another individual who actually is well known on TV. So, there's a few things going on behind the scenes which I
Yeah.
cannot quite just make public at the moment. But I will tell you, if people are listening to this in the month of April, if they
Yeah.
go to the magazine website, which is www.olm-mag.co.uk, and look on there, there's an offer going on at the moment to get reduced prices for tickets, which
Right.
ends on the last day of April this year.
Right.
So, take advantage if people are interested, they want to come along. The speakers, Peter Robbins is coming back.
Yeah.
Philip Mantle is scheduled to speak, all being well.
Yeah.
A gentleman by the name of Steve Aspin, who's a first-time author, but is a generational experiencer, contactee, who
Yeah.
has had a lifetime of different experiences. He'll be coming along and doing a talk. Darren Cooper, again, who is another contactee who had an experience in 2014 in Southampton. He's just about
Right.
to release his first book, and he'll be coming along and doing a talk about his experience, where went to work one evening. Him and his friend went for a cigarette in the coffee break
Yeah.
on top of the fire escape at the Burlington House in Southampton, and literally 20 feet above the head was a massive V-shaped UFO.
Oh,
So,
wow.
he'll be doing a talk on that.
Yeah.
Oh, good heavens! There's that many people coming. I'm forgetting who's there, who is and isn't coming.
Yeah. You'll be surprised for you on the day, won't it?
It will be, mate. Yeah, if I turn up.
Yeah. So, I was going to say, so the tickets are on sale now.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. And through the website.
Yes, just go to the website. If you're a subscriber to the magazine as well, you get a discount. And let's just say, thank you for subscribing. And everything that comes in, the subscriptions to the magazine, any T-shirts that are sold, through the magazine website, it all goes to funding the annual OLM conference.
Yeah. So is it just a one day, did you say?
Yes, it is this year. It's just a one-day event. Last year's event was a 2-day event, but I'll
Yeah.
be completely honest, I wasn't too happy with the attendance on the Sunday. So I just think you doing it on the Sunday, it's just too difficult when people have travelled in a number of
Yeah.
occasions, quite a distance to get there. I had people coming up last year from Portsmouth, Southampton, those kind of areas. And
Yeah.
when it's a good 4, 5, 6 hour journey back home, it's
That's the
not
only
worth
thing.
it.
Yeah, because I travelled. Obviously, I'm from Manchester originally, but I live down south now, just outside London. So I did
Yeah,
come up for the day, but
yeah,
I had a couple of days booked off work, so it
yeah,
wasn't too bad for me anyway.
yeah.
But if not, it'd been like what 6 hour there and back.
Yes, it will be. It will
Yeah.
be. It
So
is a bit of a journey unless you can afford train fares, but they're a bit high at the moment.
yeah.
So
No.
and
So
petrol needs to be cheaper.
yes, and diesel even cheaper than that.
Absolutely.
Right. So thank you, Chris, for coming on and joining us. I know it was short and sweet. I do know that you're really busy.
Yeah.
But it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you again. So we're going to end this now. I'll put all the information in the description on the podcast. If it goes onto YouTube, I'll add it on there as well. So
Okay.
I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on. Hope everything goes to plan at the conference.
Okay. Well,
Amazing.
thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
I
was just going to say thank you very much for that. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and perhaps we can do it again sometime, but the other way around.
Yeah, anytime. Just give me a shout, and
Will do.
I can talk about anything for as long as you want.
All right, mate. No problem.
So yeah, and keep up the amazing work with the Outer Limits magazine.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Right. So that's it for this one. Have a great evening, day, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, and whatever time you're listening to this. Take care, everyone, and speak to you all soon.